Okay, good morning, everybody. Eddie here, Risk Management Lecturer of Think Education. We are now going to discuss the last module, Module 6. Okay, again, it is recommended that you go through the learning materials because this presentation only includes some key concepts and find the details on your study guide. All right, now this is, I just don't want to repeat this again, but please make sure that you have downloaded the advice, the study guide, assessment brief, assessment template, and subject outline, and go through the learning modules. And as a bit of reminder, the assessment 3 is due in week 11. If you need help, please get in touch with me. That's my email address. Okay. Right, so we have discussed everything in here, right? Establish risk context, identify risks, analyze risks, select and implement treatments, and the topic today is basically focusing more on the monitoring. So there you go. This topic is basically about monitoring, implementing, monitor and review risk treatments, and we also try to discuss the stakeholders management as well in this presentation. Again, I believe you remember this presentation, this risk register. Let's say we have two risk events in here. We have two risk events in here, risk event A and risk event B, okay? And we have the information here, the likelihood, and also impact, and we can calculate the risk level by multiplying the likelihood and impact or consequences. Okay? And based on that, we can determine the priority, which one that we want to prioritize. Obviously, the risk that is higher in terms of level would be prioritized. Okay, and we discussed the treatment plan, action plan, and today we are also going to discuss the action plan in more detail as well, and person in charge, due date, and risk assessment. Okay, so that's the risk register. Now for your assessment 3, basically you will refer to your plan as well. Okay, look at your plan, go back to your plan. We are going to discuss that today. Okay, so the treatment plan that we decide that we have developed should clearly identify the priority order, right? So the priority should be able to tell us which individual risk treatments should be implemented, which one that we need to prioritize first as well. And it is also important to understand that a significant risk can be the failure or effectiveness of the risk treatment measures, so that we need to keep monitoring our risk management plan. Okay, for instance, when we may decide a certain treatment plan, however, we may have failure in terms of implementing it. Okay, and that will determine the effectiveness of our program. Okay, so oops. And it can also introduce the secondary risks. What it means is basically the risk that we are treating may develop to a different risk. All right. Therefore, we need to assess that again and treat the secondary risks, monitor and also review. Okay. And the secondary risks again should be incorporated into the same treatment plan as the original risks, and not treated as a new risk. So although it has developed to something else, we need to treat it and incorporate it in the original one. Okay, we discussed about the action plan, and I believe your assessment will also address the action plan, which is basically the detailed action that you need to um, developed to address the risks. It is actually the description about what needs to be done to achieve a goal. In this instance, the goal is basically to manage the risk, either through minimizing the likelihood, minimizing the impact or consequence, or both, minimizing both. Okay, or if we can, we also want to eliminate them. Okay, and the action plan actually includes this element here. How we'll do it, right? This one here reflects the specific action that we need to develop. When do we need to do it? The timeline, where, and by whom, or the person in charge. Okay, who is in charge on this action? Okay, this represents the owner of the action. Who is the owner of the action? Okay, if we don't decide it, or if we say, well, we own it, right? When we say we own it, we may not be able to determine who is responsible on the outcome. Okay, so we need to specify that. Yeah. Okay, so in developing the action plan, we need to identify the tasks. Okay, specific tasks need to be identified. What needs to be done to address that? We need to analyze and delegate the tasks. Okay, and if necessary, we need to double check that. Right? We need to double check the elements, whether they have been completed. Okay, and this includes the space. When we develop the action plan, or it is related to where. Cash, which is basically resources, helpers or people, not resources, and the other resources as well, like materials, expertise, systems. Sometimes we may invite the experts beyond the organization, like consultant, for instance, right, to invite them to come on board to help us addressing the risks. We may also need to involve the relevant stakeholders, and definitely we need to set up the key performance indicator to claim that yes, we have successfully treated the risks, or we still need to work on treating this risk. So that helps us to understand where we are at, whether we have successfully addressed the risks or not. Okay. And it should be simple, so everybody else can understand it, and it is crystal clear for everybody in the organization. And we also need to review it on regular basis. Okay. And again, we need to have the owner of this action, as discussed before, the whom element. Okay, and we also recommend you to have a proactive approach. That means you plan it early before you address the risks. Okay, you plan it, you plan the actions that you need to deliver, you involve with the stakeholders, you get the approval from the management as required, and also it is also part of the operations of the organization. Right, so again, this is the risk action plan template, and I believe you have delivered that in your assessment too. The reason why I bring this again is to show you that it is related to your monitoring. So if we've got that, okay, we've got the 4 risk events in our assessment: likelihood, impact, and we also analyze the priority, treatment options, and action. Now this is the monitoring side of it. This is the monitoring element of our risk management plan. When do we need to do it, and who is responsible in it? Okay. Now let's talk a bit more about monitoring it. Okay? In terms of monitoring, definitely we need to develop the communication plan to the others. And in doing so, we need to consider who needs what information. When we monitor it, we need to get involved. We need to get the stakeholders involved, but they may need different type of information from us. Further, they may need a different format of information from us. So we need to understand what format of information that they need, when they need it, where the information should be stored. Do we need to email it, or some stakeholders may require us to have the hard copy of report or communication, or some organizations also have what they call as a shared drive or intranet, where we can store the files, we can store the information, and the relevant stakeholders can access it. And we also need to explain to the stakeholders how the information can be retrieved. Right, now we talk about the stakeholders. This is what we mean by stakeholders: individuals, group of people, organization. They may or may not gain benefit and can materially affect the outcome. And in managing the stakeholder, we also, some experts suggest to look at the power that they have, and we can map them from 1 to 5. One may represent, no measured power, and we determine who the stakeholder is. Okay, right through he. 5 is representing extreme degree of power. So this guy is very powerful. Okay, so that's what we do in terms of managing the stakeholder as well. And aside from their power, we also need to look at their interests, whether some stakeholders may not be interested, okay, may have little interest in what we do in our risk management plan. The other stakeholders may be extremely interested in what we do in our risk management plan because it may affect their department, their function in the organization. Or it may affect their own specific action. And after we analyze the power interest, we can map them here to help us understanding what we need to do for each of them. Okay, so here we say low interest, the stakeholder who has low interest and high interest. In terms of power, we can also look at them from low and high. Now, how do we determine low and high? You make decision based on the measures that we discussed before, the rating that we discussed before. Okay, here if the stakeholder has low interest and low power, just minimal effort that we spend. But if the stakeholder has high power and high interest on the opposite of it, we manage it closely. Okay. And if the stakeholder has low power but high interest, so these guys are interested in what we do, and the strategy is normally keep them posted on what on the progress that we have achieved in our risk management plan, okay, in our monitoring. Okay? And what about if the stakeholder has low interest but they are powerful? Right, we keep them satisfied. Okay, that's a strategy. Okay, when we monitor our risk management plan. Okay, so there you go. The stakeholders can also be analyzed in this area here, like the who the stakeholders are, what are they responsible, or what are they responsible for, and the information that they need, format of the information, how frequent we need to update them, and who the stakeholder is. Okay, so that's another format as well to help us managing our stakeholders. Okay, there you go. This is another tool for us to consider in terms of managing the engagement of our stakeholders. We can map the stakeholders based on unaware of what we do or what our risk management plan is. They are resistant, so they're against it, neutral, supportive, and leading. Okay, so our intention is in terms of managing the stakeholder engagement is to get them support us or help us leading it. Right, in this instance, we expect them to lead their own group to support us. Okay, this is very fantastic if we can get it. Okay, let's say if we have got these 3 stakeholders, right? Stakeholder 1, stakeholder 2, stakeholder 3. Stakeholder 1 is unaware. Stakeholder 2 is neutral. Stakeholder 3 is basically they are supportive already. Okay, so which is fantastic. Okay, so our plan, our desired plan. Okay, D represents desired position, C represents the current position, of these stakeholders, right? Our intention is to bring them after unaware. We engage with them, we communicate our plan in our, and we, when we monitor the activities, we also keep them posted, right? So we can get their support, right? In here, for the second stakeholder, we also expect them to be moving from neutral position into supportive position. And for stakeholder 3, since they are, since this stakeholder is already supportive to us, which is in line with our desired position, if we can move this stakeholder further into a leading position, that is fantastic. Okay, so when we monitor it, we keep them posted. We understand their position. Okay? So that helps us to understand the stakeholders. Now, again, the monitoring the action, the risk action plan, as mentioned to you since week 1, since module 1, we need to keep monitoring and reviewing the action to it, the action, okay? And when we monitor it, definitely we need to manage the stakeholders' interest and also power. Right? It is an integral part to the risk management process. That's what our framework suggests in here. Okay? Therefore, since the first step of the risk management plan, we all already need to get involved, communicate, and consult our stakeholders. Okay, and monitoring our risk management plan. Okay, how do we do that? Well, we review risks, right? Organizations do that, right? They organize regular meetings with the team. They organize regular communications, and they also organize the progress report or review of their risk action plan. Okay, they share the information. And they also get organized to solve the critical issues when they manage the risk. Okay, so that's what they do. Okay, and monitor the risk action plan. Okay? And again, it is also critical to understand to identify the person in charge for specific risk management activity, because this person will help us achieving our goal in managing the risks. Okay, and normally organizations have got their own specific person in charge responsible for specific activities, including managing risks. Okay, it could be for risk management. Some organizations have got their own insurance risk manager, or corporate treasurer, or finance director, internal auditor, and so on and so forth. And I believe everyone is aware that some organizations also have WHS manager, for instance, who is in charge on the WHS risk management. Okay. Right, there you go. If we go back here to the risk register, we have done this risk register. So now, as also reflected in your assessment 3, it is a matter of monitoring this, how this risk register is implemented, how this treatment plan, action plan is implemented, okay, by engaging the stakeholders, monitoring the progress, right, organizing review with the stakeholders, and managing their interests, right, managing their power and interest, to be more precise. Okay, okay. So what are the next steps? Well, look, guys, please again, do not get frustrated with you know, if you don't understand things, because what we recommend you to do is to go through the module 6. Again, this presentation is short one to pick up the key concepts in your learning guide, and start the assessment 3, which is due in week 11. Okay, attempt the tasks and hand in your assessment on time, because if you don't, you are piling up more work towards the end of the course. Okay, and this is my email address if you need help from me. Okay, references. Right, now let's have a look at the the assessment as discussed before. Okay. Oops, this is the template. Now, this is the brief. Okay, again, last week we discussed this. Okay, so the tasks in here actually focus on monitoring it. All right. So when we try to monitor it, when we show our monitoring, okay, our project report, progress report, we need to understand what has been planned. Therefore, you need to summarize the plan again. Okay, so here, if you look at that, and sure include this element in your report, you got to include the plan because you're monitoring a plan. When you monitor a plan, you got to show what you got to show where's the plan, right? Where the plan is. Okay. Now, the best way to show your plan is to go back to your register table, the one that we discussed here, and go back here to your risk register table because that reflects your plan. Okay. Oops. And show the implementation of your plan. Okay. How do we get that information? How do we populate the information for? Okay. Let's step back a little bit. How do we get the plan? You can populate information from your risk register plan, okay? Your risk register table, okay? Here you actually review the business scenario information that has been provided in the appendix of this task, okay? And therefore, you can develop a report, okay? All right, now implementation, outcome, and evaluation, okay? How do we populate information? Yeah, there you go. Okay, this is basically reflecting the implementation information. Okay, so when it is implemented, this reflects the summary of the findings. So I think last week we discussed this briefly. The financial control had taken out $5,000 on insurance cover for cash held on the premises overnight from the launch week as planned. Okay, so it has been done as planned. Okay, so it has been done as planned. Okay, good. And the second one here, if you look at that, the company bank account that was planned to be open the first week was actually open about 4 weeks after the Carface launch. Okay, so after the Carface launch. Okay, so here it was planned to be open in the first week. Okay, all right. So that's a bit of information about in terms of implementation. Okay. Now, if we scroll down further, yeah, we get a bit of submission instructions here. Okay, so that's basically how that's basically the information that we need in terms of implementation. You can also actually find the finding key because there are some gap in here between the implementation and also what has happened in the when you implement it. Okay. The third one here, for instance, teleconferencing system. Okay, the organization has planned that. Planned for 6 months after launch, has not yet been finally installed. Right, so it has not been installed. Why? Due in part to the delay in the rollout of the federal government's national broadband network, so NBN, and the government's NBN. Okay. Now, again, how do we do that? Okay. How do we? What we deliver? This is the thing that you need to deliver. Okay. The first section here, a summary of the risk management plan. Okay, this is your summary. Okay. You can insert your risk register table, and you can also include the key points of your plan in here, right? As long as you capture 4 risk events, right, in here, and also how you your analysis of the risk, and also how you will action to it, you'll be fine here. Second one is the implementation, right? Go back to the appendix for this one. Okay, the implementation is explained in the appendix. Now, outcome and evaluation, right? Where do we get the information? The same thing, right? Because if you look at the summary, the implementation, it also includes the summary of findings. Okay, they have planned something, and they should get something as well as the result. Okay. Right, so that's basically the assessment. So I guess pretty straightforward because the information is available for you, right? Okay, again, let me know if you need further help. You can send me the email. Good luck.